Happy Pentecost. Today we remember the coming of the Holy Spirit, descending upon the disciples as described in the book of Acts. I don't think we talk about the Holy Spirit enough, the third person of the Trinity. Part of the reason, perhaps, may be because she is so difficult to describe, the most mysterious and elusive person of the three in one and one in three. She's like a dove at Jesus' baptism, a violent rushing wind and tongues of fire from our story today. The Spirit is God's sustaining energy, and so perhaps the Holy Spirit is better understood by what the Spirit does, her actions and their effects. Just in our readings today, the Spirit is shared around, poured out. The Spirit fills up, creates, and renews. The presence and movement of the Spirit, it is said, causes people to prophesy, to see visions and dream dreams, to speak of God's deeds of power, connecting with people of many different languages and places. However, it is clear from our readings today that the Spirit is not timid or tame. The effects of the Holy Spirit are not always comfortable. In the story we heard from Numbers today, 70 elders are gathered in order that the Spirit may be shared with them, which results in their prophetic activity. However, the Spirit does not rest on them alone. It spills over into camp, and we hear that Eldad and Medad, two persons not part of the 70, receive the Spirit as well, and so that they begin to prophesy. This is surprising, unexpected, and apparently some people were uncomfortable with this. One even went to Moses to try to stop them. But you can't stop the Spirit when she is on the move. In Acts, it says that the disciples' sudden linguistic abilities causes people to be amazed, but also perplexed, confused, maybe even uncomfortable as well. Some question their sobriety, even though it is 9 a.m. Have they been drinking, they ask? This is what the Holy Spirit is like: wild, uncontrollable, confusing, uncomfortable. It causes the old and the young and even slaves, says Joel, those without power or status, to prophesy, have visions, and dream beyond the status quo. The Spirit moves people to do what was believed to be impossible, beyond the limitations of our sometimes too small imaginations. Right now, there is sorrow and outrage flowing freely as a result of the death of George Floyd this past week. Yet another victim of racism, that terrible and pervasive sin that is so deeply ingrained in our society. But it's not just him, for there are countless others. He is just the latest, one more beloved child of God who would not have died if the color of his skin had been different. And this problem, this sin, is not an American one. This is in our communities too, in our countries, baked in. We have heard of a rise in race-based attacks and overt prejudice here, particularly against those of Asian descent. An increase which implies that there is a normal level of race-based attacks and prejudice, and isn't that awful? Our society here continues to be plagued by historic and current racism everywhere. People continue to experience prejudice, disadvantage, and death because of racism. And if you think it is not a problem for you, it is. It is a problem for me. And not just because we are called to live in a way that when one suffers, all should feel it, should reach out with love and compassion to our hurting siblings. It's a problem for me because I need to confront and deal with my own racism. Those tendencies I have ingrained in me, my participation, how I continue to benefit from a system in which I am privileged and which for others is rigged against them. I need to do something because in this society that I live in, because of the color of my skin, I do not worry about looking suspicious doing everyday things. I do not worry about someone calling the police on me. I don't worry that this might be a death sentence. Maybe this makes you uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable. And maybe we should be. Maybe we should pay attention to that feeling because that's what the Holy Spirit is like. Perhaps these actions being taken, these emotions, these voices that at times feel so hot, are the flames of Pentecost, the Spirit moving like a rushing, violent wind. Maybe those people calling out for justice, calling out for an end to these needless deaths, calling out for the tearing down of these broken systems are the young and old, and those without power and status that Joel talks about. Perhaps these are the ones which the Spirit is poured out on, dreaming dreams, having visions of a different way of being, a better world than the one that we are imagining, the one that we have come to accept. Maybe they are prophesying, calling out and naming this evil, challenging the status quo, challenging us. How will we respond? How will you respond? Because it matters. It really does. And the stakes are life and death for so many. In a pastoral letter from Archbishop Melissa issued just yesterday, she writes, We must strengthen our commitment to working on the racism that we ourselves carry within us. For no one is exempt from racist beliefs, tendencies, and actions. And we must, wherever possible, stand up for and stand with our siblings in Christ who look different from us, who sound different from us, who practice different cultures from the cultures we grew up with, and who suffer in ways that we must always be open, with humility, to learn more about. I will strengthen my commitment. I will pray, I will learn, I will change, I will act. I need to. And it's going to be uncomfortable. But I hope that you will join me because I believe our Christian witness calls for nothing less. And with the Spirit's intercession, her inspiration, her empowerment, I believe we can. And now I just want to pray that the Spirit descends upon us today. I invite you to join with me in this prayer. Pray for me. Pray for yourselves. Pray for our world. Come, Holy Spirit, come. Alight upon us today. Come like a rushing wind and stir us from our complacency. Fan the flames in our hearts and minds so that our dreams and imaginations might be greater than what we thought possible. Run wild and free. spilling over the banks where we would control you, move in surprising and unexpected ways. Make us uncomfortable. Descend like tongues of fire and give us power to communicate, connect, and understand with those who are different from us in a spirit of humility. May your flames burn away the prejudice and injustice within ourselves and which are entrenched in our society. Continue to inspire, continue to encourage, continue to empower us to do what we thought was impossible in the name of love. Come, Holy Spirit, come. Amen.